Hi, welcome back. It's Chris Fuller here with my good friend Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, continuing with our Global Success Summit. And we are so excited to introduce our next guest.
Hi, Mary Joy. How are you? Just the
I'm
last
fine.
name, Miss Joy.
Oh, it's good to see you, Elizabeth and Chris. We were talking earlier about the jazz hands. We're all theater people here. All
yes. On demand.
Yes, on
That's so funny. Oh, goodness. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. You have a new book out as well. It's out. It didn't get in the delay of everything, correct?
It did not. It was just a few days delayed. So I can't be happier because I really, it was delayed a bit, but not much.
Yeah. So are you enjoying the summit so far?
I am. You've had such great guests, and I've learned so much. I really, really have. And to hear people's stories, and they're so inspiring. And Chris, you've been through so much. You know, you don't know someone's whole story until you actually listen, which is kind of what I was thinking about talking today is people need to listen to themselves as well as others. You listen to yourself through listening to others. So that's what I've been doing today. I took the whole day off to practice what I preach and take care of me so I can be the best for this show.
Well, we appreciate that so much. We appreciate that so much. And we're excited to have you. And I wish we had 4 hours like I do with every guest to talk about everything that is Mary, because okay, hold up your book for us. Let's get that.
Here it is. Oh, wait, let me get it.
Yeah,
there it is. Let's get the glare.
Codependent Discovery
and Recovery 2.0, a holistic guide to healing and freeing yourself.
Yeah.
The best you can be.
Fantastic. So let's kick it off with you explaining a few things. Can you just explain what you mean by codependency and how can that manifest in a person?
Well, in the very brief sense, it's people when people take care of others to the point of neglecting themselves, that can be codependency, and it manifests in people pleasing, approval seeking, and feeling really guilty when you say no. And I bet that just resonated with a bunch of your audience, that they just feel really, really, if you're giving till you give out or till you burn out, which burnout is a medical diagnosis, then you might be codependent. You might be.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to not raise my hand on that.
Because here's the situation too, and this is my next question for you. Do you feel that I know you talk about this, that there's a spectrum to it? Because we raised our hands and it's not something to joke about, but the items and the things you talked about, and certainly while I was caring for my husband, that thought went through my mind. I was like, was I codependent then? But it was a different landscape. So never mind about that, but talk to us about the spectrum and elaborate on what that means.
Well, first we'll address like when you take care of a husband or elderly parents. I always say I got stuck back in Florida, which I never thought I'd be back here because I took care of my elderly parents. That's not codependent. That is caring for others. That's compassionate. There's a huge difference between compassionate caring for others when you really have to. But if you were caring for your husband and baking 100 pies for a church social and smiling and doing 1,000 podcasts or writing books, it's too much. It's too much for anyone. You're too strong for too long. So no, that is not codependency. But how it manifests in a spectrum is there's a doormat kind, which I was, I'll do anything you want. I'll say anything you want. I was a good girl. And then you just give up. And then there's the other kind that's the nagging, more controlling type. Now, some people vacillate between those two. You can be you're going to go to rehab or I'm going to leave you, or you can drink all you want and you can say whatever you want to me. I just love you and I'll stay. But there's in between, and you may vacillate in different roles. So people may relate to it that way. Because a lot of times we just hear the old term codependent meant you were living with someone who was addicted to something and he was or she was dependent on something and you were codependent, and it's expanded to so much more than that. It's just way more than that. Not everyone who lives with someone who's addicted is codependent, not at all, because they're not letting that person's illness affect their life.
Can you share your story of how you even are here today with us right now? Like, can you back up and just share a little bit about your journey and talk about success with it?
My journey, like from which part of my life? Yeah. My life seems fragmented, but it really wasn't, because I was in theater.
It's a pretty big pivot.
In my childhood, I was a psychiatrist's daughter and I grew up on a beach, and it was a small town. So I had to be the extension of my family image. And that was pretty serious. A psychiatrist's child is a lot like a preacher's kid. You just can't mess up, which you do. So I left home at 17, went into theater, put myself through college as a stagehand, and then I worked for Kiss for 3 years as a makeup and wardrobe assistant. And I even put in my book, it was a piece of cake to work for Kiss after my parents. I could handle 4 rock stars easily after living in that, that regimented must be good. And I worked in my dad's office and all the things I had to do. So then I became a songwriter in Nashville because theater was kind of dying. And as you know, Chris, in 1982, they tore down a bunch of Broadway theaters and I was living in Manhattan. And then I wrote in Nashville. Then those companies sold to internet companies. And I said, I'm going to have to reinvent, which I went back to my original plan of not listening to my father. And I became a counselor. Instead of a psychiatrist, I did not want to go to medical school. I would pass out and flunk out if I had to cut people open. So, but that's kind of the brief story of my life chronologically. I was in the music business, and then I think writing songs with people, which is what I did, get you in touch with your feelings so you can get in touch with other people's feelings. I don't think I do anything differently now than I did before. I just have little letters after my name. That's it.
What was the calling to make the pivots that you did? What made you pay attention to you being your best in those moments?
Oh, wow. I lived in an abusive marriage. I did. I fully admit it. It's in the book. I didn't spell too much details out because it isn't about me. It's about helping people like me. And I jumped from the frying pan into a lava pit, as I put in the book. But truly, I said, this isn't me. This is not who I was born to be. It's not who I am. And I went back and got educated. And when I got educated and started opening the textbooks, and I saw that there were names for things I was suffering and that I wasn't alone, it helped me to help other people. And then a mess can become a message, as we've all heard. And that's what called me to be the best I can be. And I said, okay, I'm self-actualized enough to just not bare soul to everyone because I have boundaries, but to let my life be of service to people. And I'll no longer be in service to people, which is very different.
Yeah.
Very different. I was in servitude, and now what we're all doing right here today is servanthood. Very, very different.
Yeah. And what a nice pivot for you. I know you were in your mid 40s when you made that change. And that's what I am right now. And I think, yes, there's still, if you're listening and you're thinking of making a change, there is never a wrong time. Just go for it.
No. And I was not I wasn't the oldest person in my class. And then later I became a family court mediator too. And that was just about 6 or 7 years ago. So you can do so many things. I mean, sometimes it is too late for some things, but a lot of times the wisdom you have, I always tell my clients, I'm not getting this stuff out of a textbook, Yeah. Some of it I am, but a lot of it is wisdom and life experience, as you all are teaching everyone today with these beautiful teachers. I've loved listening.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you've made the changes that you've made, or we wouldn't be here. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, hands, right? Talk about boundaries for a little bit, because boundaries are a popular topic, but I'm not sure everybody completely understands what people mean by boundaries all the time.
I wasn't either. There I was in school, in graduate school, saying, what are boundaries really? Because when you've been traumatized as a kid, or you've been violated in any way, I mean, and we've all been through something traumatic, you don't really have a good sense of boundaries. So one day I was out feeding my horses, and I looked at the gate and I said, it's not the fence keeping people out, it's the gate on who I let in and who I let out. That fence is to keep my horses in and safe. It's to keep them in and safe, not to keep people out. And I had a gate with a lock on it, and some people knew the combination to that lock that I trusted, but nobody knew about the back gate except me and the horses and my husband. Because there's a storm gate, because sometimes you have to let horses out if there's a storm, but you don't let anyone know about it because your horses can get out of it. So I said, it's the gate. It's all about the gate. And we all need to keep sacred gates too, to our lives. We don't let everybody into everything, but we allow people to just, have access to us as we feel comfortable. how we feel about ourselves is more important than how we feel about others when we're with someone. So it's all about that gate. I think boundaries, hopefully I got that message across. It's the gate.
I like that. I like that analogy a lot. It made perfect sense to me. And just a moment ago, you had mentioned us bringing in teachers and learning around this. And I feel like you're someone that simplifies things beautifully. You've done a ton of research on neuroscience,
Yes.
and yet when you explain things, you make it easy to understand. And so why is understanding so important when you look at recovery and you look at codependency?
Is it ever important? I tell my clients, I read so you don't have to. So yes, I can use all the big words, and yes, I was raised by a psychiatrist, but truly it's like I use a lot of rhyming. I'm a songwriter, so we had to fit a lot into 3 minutes. Really, we had to learn to do that. And now it's more like 4 minutes, but neuroscience is important. And that's why I use rhyming, just like the title of my book, Discovery and Recovery, because anything that rhymes sticks in our heads. That's why we remember lyrics. So I make neuroscience easy, and I call it recognize and neutralize your triggers. So if you can recognize what triggers you as a person, even if anything, trauma, codependency, just being plain nice, too nice for your own good sometimes. If you recognize things, you can neutralize things. And there's a lot to do with biology. It's physiology. We all have those gut feelings and those gut reactions. And there's this huge thing in our body called the vagus nerve. So we all know about fight, flight, and frozen, but the vagus nerve is what gives us physical responses, like our expression, or when we do this, because our vagus nerve goes from our face all the way down through our vital organs. So the same thing that takes your breath away at the Grand Canyon is the same thing that takes your breath away when you have a panic attack. But one is a negative emotion and one is a positive emotion. And that's why I teach people how to think more positively, even when negative things are happening. Today, when I was listening, I wrote something down that I thought was, you all inspired me when I wrote this down just today, because my big thing was for people to listen to themselves, and neuroscience has a lot to do with that. So if anybody's suffering out there today, I'm always cognizant of a person who's listening, who's truly suffering and thinks it's impossible for me to do anything like go back to school or get a divorce or deal with someone dying in my family, which that is what prompted me to write this book, is the death in my family. But I wrote down, we all need to go from asking ourselves, why is this happening to me, to what is this teaching me? And have I been here before? Have I missed a lesson before? And then later, when you process that out, you can say, well, what did I learn from this to move forward? So I hope I'm helping people learn a little bit more today, that it's okay to be not okay for a while. You just have to not be okay sometimes.
A lot of the times people think things happen to us, when in reality they're happening for us.
Exactly. And I don't really buy into the phrase that everything happens for a reason, because it doesn't. Not that people can see right away. It's not helpful. Even if it's true, which I don't think it is, but even if it's true, it's not helpful for some people to hear it, because they can't go, what possible reason could this have happened to me for? It's so painful. There's a reason for this amount of pain. So you don't have to accept the unacceptable. You just have to process it and see what it's teaching you, to try to gain something from the loss. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think so too. And that what you just said there too resonates with me. And I don't know that I believe it either, because some of the terrible things that have happened to me don't line up. So
they do not.
I like that you just said that. Thank you, Mary.
Yes, I tell people, don't try to make sense of the senseless. Don't try to accept the unacceptable. And not everything happens for a reason. Maybe when we get on the other side of it, we can see every now and then you get the luxury of finding out something, or there's a metamorphosis. That's why I wore this jacket today. There's little butterflies on it. Sometimes there's a metamorphosis from it, and you can see a reason in hindsight, but that doesn't always happen. You just have to let things unfold and make it part of your life story without making it your destiny.
I like that.
It's interesting too, because a lot of the times when something positive happens, we go, oh, that happened for a reason. But when we're negative, we're all about, no.
Yes, that's the truth.
Touch it with a 10-foot pole, kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's interesting. In your book, let's go back to your book for a minute, which is available on Amazon or wherever books are sold. each chapter has a meditation in it, which is interesting. You say meditation revision exercise with an affirmation. Okay, that's a long sentence. What does that mean?
Well, there's YouTube videos that you can access for free. So you don't really have to do the meditations. They're done for you. So there you can just go on Mary Joye YouTube, and all at the end of every chapter. And I've even put chapter 1, 2, 3. I made it very easy. But meditations will expedite your healing process.
Mm-hmm.
They will. I have a little dog scratching over there. I know you all love your animals too. If you hear something, it's my little dog.
We have cats running
He's
around.
so sweet. He's a little empath, that one. Yeah. But the meditations are to expedite healing because they're mostly guided imagery, and they only last about 5 to 10 minutes. I make them very simple, but you're relaxing and recognizing things so you can change your brain. Meditation does, and the affirmation, which I say for you on the video as well, it just sinks it in there, and you use I am statements instead of I will. When you say I am going to be independent, it's very different than saying I will be independent, because one, it's like way in the future and it seems so insurmountable. But if you say I am, you're accessing it in the present, and you're doing the best you can in the moment, just doing the next thing that makes you feel a little more independent.
Yeah.
What's the difference between meditation and some of the things that I do, where you're having people actually like pause with nothing going on, just to completely quiet down? What's the difference?
That's mindfulness. And I heard you, Chris, talking about nature, because I say nature nurtures you. There's a whole section in my book about nature, that the best way to get in touch with you is to get outside with nature. The birds speak to me, the trees speak to me. I don't care how crazy people think that is, but this is why our national parks are so crowded this summer, because everybody was in lockdown and they all were seeking nature that nurtures them. So that's mindfulness, what you're describing, just to be shut down and quiet. And I love that. It's very different than guided imagery, which is what I do in the book. Or even I do transcendental meditation too. I was taught that at a very early age, where you just sit there quietly and you say a phrase over and over and over, wherever your peaceful phrase is. It can be given to you, or you will sometimes hear it yourself, which was the case for me. But there's different kinds of meditation, and any kind that people want to do. Just walking outside, just driving a different way home and turning off the radio is a form of meditation. Just being quiet.
On this one, I have one more, because meditation is one of those things where when you start, you're like, well, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know, this meditation, that meditation. A lot of people offer them. What about when you, let's go with the meditation where you're repeating yourself and saying the same thing over and over. What if a checklist moment creeps into your I am this, I am that, and then, checklist, I got to go let out the dog, or I forgot bananas. What if your checklist comes into play while you're trying to do that?
Oh, that happens so often. Yes, I forgot the bananas. Yeah. Okay, the bananas can wait, because believe me, if the bananas are important, you won't forget them when you come out of the meditation. That is what some meditators call monkey brain. That you can almost expect it. Just welcome it, embrace it. I tell people, just embrace those random thoughts that come in, because what's happening is your memory bank is kind of emptying out when you access your subconscious. Because meditation, the word meditation, like mediation, the middle, meditation is your subconscious talking to your conscious mind. So yes, you're going to have some transitional crazy thoughts come in, but just let them come and go. We call it observing the thoughts instead of, holding on to the thoughts. Just, yes, I know I need bananas. Just go away. It's on my list. And if you forget bananas, can't you go back out and buy more bananas? Most of us can.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. It's just your brain's way of resisting change, because it will resist change. I mean, it will push back on you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I like that. Give yourself a little break when you're meditating, whether you're new or experienced at it. And meditation.
I have gotten up from meditations and written things down. There's no right or wrong way to meditate. If it's going to make you anxious to not write it down, go write it down. Pause the tape, write it again, go write it down, finish.
Yeah, good. I like that easygoing nature about it, because you're right.
Be easy on yourself. Be easy on yourself, everyone. Be easy.
Beautiful.
In that bucket of being easy on yourself, and meditating is a form of self-care. We've talked with you about self-care. It's important, but can it ever go too far? And I know you've written an article about this, and I'd love you to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yes, I'm actually still working on that for Elizabeth. Elizabeth inspired me to write that. Yes, because I've really given that some deep thought. Yes, it can. In one respect, sometimes you have to go from one extreme to the other, being like a doormat to maybe a guarded, tough person. And then you can't, believe me, you can't sustain it. I tried it for about 2 weeks. It was exhausting. So it was exhausting.
Yeah, picture that, actually.
It's not my nature to be guarded at all.
It had to be a real hard exercise for you, actually.
It was awful. But to just, recognize that you're just human and nothing you do is going to be perfect. So just go easy on yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. But when you self-care to the point of, oh no, I'm sorry, I can't, you had an accident, you broke your arm, I'm getting a pedicure, then it's gone too far. Now I use that extreme example, but I think we all know people who are like that.
Yeah.
And that is not self-care. That is self-absorption. And you can only absorb so much of yourself before you annoy yourself.
Actually, I'm working with a client who has a mom like that. Grew up with a mom like that.
Scary. I had one. I did. That is how I came to this book. I had one like that. And it was, you feel self-raised. You really, really do. It's very difficult. But yes, they're too busy. They can't be bothered. They're looking for a piece of lolly crystal. And I'm sorry. If I can't help
You're an inconvenience.
Yes. Yes. So I do understand that. And it's very serious. So be aware when you self-care that if you feel like, and it's not about guilt, because guilt is what people feel, they feel guilty. Codependents feel guilty. But if you feel like you're really being self-absorbed, just slow down a bit.
Yeah.
Slow down and just take inventory of yourself.
Yeah, that slow down has been a recurring theme throughout today's talking about success and talking about the tools. And speaking of tools, I know in the chapters you also have the life lists.
Yes.
And talk to us about that. And in particular, when we're looking at someone in that codependency, like how does that really help them?
Oh, we froze a little bit.
Well, I wrote the life list. That is actually how I recovered. And I wasn't narcissistic about it. I tried them for many, many years with clients, and they worked. It's like when they would come in and say, I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't know who I am. I would write down, what don't you want? And on the opposite side, I would write whatever the opposite was. If they say, I don't want to be sad, I'd write, I want to be happy. It seems so simple. And yet again, slow down. I made the bullet point list. And it's funny because I've had that same message this week. The collective consciousness is to slow down. We all need to slow down. We're re-entering after COVID. So these life lists are meant to be self-help, literally self-help. You're going to be writing your own lists. They're bullet points, so you don't have to stop and journal, 1,000 things. They're just bullet points. And when you have the left list of what you don't want and the right list of what you do want, at the end, you release the left list, so you're only left with what's right, if that makes sense. Yeah. But it works. And then you're going to keep your own lists. So you could throw the book away, but you have your own self-help book that you've written with 10 bullet point lists.
Cool.
We're not throwing your book away, so.
Thank you. But if you did, you could keep your own list.
But I get it, yeah.
Perfect. It's funny how sometimes, I love what you said there too. It's funny, we don't know what we want, but we sure know what we don't want.
Yes, because all codependents say, if you ask a codependent, where do you want to go for dinner? They say,
I don't know.
Wherever you want to go. That's right. So I tell them, can you start to learn to say, I don't know. However, I don't want Italian food, or I don't want steak. I want something healthy. You're allowed to say what you don't want. And it's a good place to start. And I know a lot of law of attraction things say, oh, don't focus on what you don't want. But sometimes that's where people are.
Yeah.
They just are at the, I know what I don't know what I do want, but I know what I don't want.
Sometimes I think you have to backtrack to maybe unlearn. I think sometimes people weren't raised with values. You have to get those intact and to develop your values, your goals, your beliefs, and your behavior and your actions. You have to touch on what you don't want.
Yes.
It's not realistic. I mean, I get it. I don't want to live there. I don't want to dwell on it because I will probably get more of it. So I'm kind of like, eh. But the list of what you do want is
it's so important. And what you just touched on is so near and dear to my heart. Some of the people that I work with call me Yoda, which is fine. I'm fine with that. And I'm not a big, huge Star Wars fanatic. But I'll never forget when Star Wars was coming out, I watched the one with Yoda when Luke Skywalker found out his dad was Darth Vader.
What? No, just kidding.
I know. But my favorite line, I'll never forget, because I was in school, I was studying things when I saw that. I guess I must have seen it on TV. But Yoda said to Luke, "Oh, that's okay. You just have to unlearn what you've learned." And he started with him where he was. And it's that Joseph Campbell's model of a hero's journey that George Lucas used to make his stories. That's everyone's story. Everybody who's listening, that's your story too. You have a calling, you resist it, then you get shoved into it. You heard my story. All of us have had those stories. Then you go into a dark place for a while, and then you come back out with what it's called returning with the elixir. And here we are all doing that. We're giving you messages, and everybody sitting here, we're all going to go through one of those again. That's part of life, these cycles that go through, and we'll learn from them every single time. And that's how you get to be a success. You learn from the failures. You cannot be successful without failing. You probably can. I don't know anyone who has a success story that hasn't used a failure to learn something from it to go forward. I mean, from Elon Musk to Thomas Edison to everyone that ever lived.
Yeah. Mary Joy, it has been beautiful. Your joy is so loved on Best Ever You. It's fun to get to know you better. It's fun to see your book and your smile, and the information that you give us. So we're grateful that you're here. And before we sign
off, tell us again your website and what platforms people can find you on.
You can find me on Facebook, just Mary Joye. It's Joy with an E on the end, Joye. And you can look up Mary Joy LMHC. It just makes it easier again, because there's not many of them out there. And I'm on YouTube and Facebook and winterhavencounseling.com.
Beautiful. So, thank you.
Thank you. I hope it helps someone. I truly, genuinely do. Many people.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back with our next guest. Bye, Mary.
Thank you.